dollars to go to someone else.
You know, the other thing I know about them is they're more local, and they've done more work locally, and more work with districts that have the same demographics as ours.
That may give them a better feel for what they need to do here, and that might have allowed them to provide a more competitive bid. That's my speculation there. Versus someone from out of the area that doesn't have a clue. All right, no questions? Thank you very much. Thank you, Mrs. Stratton.
Is that it? I'm coming close. All right, so our next meeting dates, November 7th. So yes. It's a election day.
Day before. Day before.
There's a couple of items that I would like, a couple of items that I'd like the board to consider. One is, we talked a little bit about, so we have our board agenda now posted on our website. The goal would be to be able to utilize that agenda throughout our meetings so that the public can see where we're at, that the attachments would be right on that agenda, and so when we post them, that would be also available for the public, but certainly during our meeting, that this would be more of electronic production rather than the paper copies. So I don't know if you'd like to entertain that idea and see when we would move to begin to implement that. Do you want to start that in January? You know, when would be a good start date for you? Because I think, you know, the culture has been that we have these hard copies and we're giving them out, and that's a transition, you know, when you're moving from hard copies to electronic formats. Audience would then need to bring their tablets because we're not going to really have these available, and board members would need to learn how to use tablets if you don't know how. So we'd have to do a little training on that.
Would we be able to write notes and stuff on, I mean, would we be able to include notes on that?
If you know how to use a finger for it, I know.
Okay.
we would have keyboards for you also. But I don't know if that's an item you want to just have a small discussion around.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yes. And then the second item that I noticed in
On that topic, can we have like what is it, cost effective, a cost analysis? I think that would be good.
Of
the pads as opposed to the hard.
How much did we spend compiling these
Which one is
versus
it?
one? The labor involved.
Labor costs.
I can tell you it's a week production. And then Lydia goes around and delivers them, you know, to folks. So this is an electronic submission. You can certainly still request to get your binder. We would be have a hard copy available for the public, and you know, we have to also be very sensitive that if there are folks who need a hard copy and have hard on digital formats, that we would be able to provide that for them. So, but it is a movement. It is, you know, towards the paperless end, and it would be highly cost savings. Right now, we look. Well, I can bring this information to you when we have the discussion. The other item that I would like to see if you want to talk about is board travel. That you know, there's usually in the board policy, you're outlining as board members, like in my contract, I think I have actually in it things that you've okayed for me to participate in, and so those travel and the cost involved with the travel, not so much the cost, but what is it that you identify as your main professional development areas that you want to contribute. For instance, there is right now the governance academy going on for CSBA, which I think is a wonderful opportunity if we could do that. I know Monterey County Office of Ed is looking to bring that our way, so we don't have to go throughout the state to get there. but there's CSBA, there's CLSBA, there's there's CABE. I know that most of the board members have participated in those conferences, and I know you love to do that. So maybe just formalizing that and just bringing it to the board as an item to discuss about each other, what is your, where do you want to put your efforts and energies into, or what do you want to validate in terms of your professional development?
Well, if I may make just one quick point on that. Attending a conference like CSBA and actually being there, I think is much, much more beneficial to the boardroom, because there's just, the volume is so great and the choices are so many, as opposed to when MCOE brings something to us, it's in a limited fashion.
Well, they would be bringing it to you in the same format, so it would be CSBA Governance Institute. So it would be the same institute, but it'd be located
I
here,
see.
run by CSBA and run by the experts and the pros. And so I think that's great. I think one of the things that I'm learning and is trying to have the public have a good idea of what we are doing, where we are spending our money, where the board is. I'll just say that the Building the Better board requested, our credit card receipts and for the board, and so on those credit card receipts, which are piles that I can go through over and over again, are the things that we went to. The CSBA, the the CLSBA, the CABE, you'll see those receipts. And so the more public we make this, I think, the less questions you'll have, because it'll already be transparent. It'll already be part of our board validation that you've done for yourselves and for myself. And so that's, in that effort and in that maintenance, I think is a good thing to do.
There are a couple of things I'd like to request. One, at the end of last year, El Gavilan came to us and they wanted to approve money for their toolkit, which was supposed to support PBIS. I'd just like an update on how that's going, because they had a shift in principals, and I know the former principal was a huge advocate of the toolkit. I just want to make sure it's working for the new principal in the school. So if we could get an update on how the toolkit is going at OGAB.
I think it's really cool. Actually, I'm laughing because today at the staff development day, and Richard probably didn't even notice this, but the principals have this big thing hanging with the big yellow card. That's the toolkit. So she's got they've got these little flip cards that they use, and it's
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah, I just love to see it.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's one thing. The other thing was October is anti-bullying month. I'd like at the next board meeting to possibly have students or staff, not the principals, not the vice principal, but students or staff come and give us a little update on what they did for their anti-bullying month. Whether it's their, tell us about their assemblies or show us something. I'd love to see it in action. I think that would be really nice. Plus, I think it'd be an opportunity for schools to show off. So if some schools could just come and do that, that would be great. And then the last thing that I'm asking for is that the California, Public Records Act requests that we've been getting, the 200 and some odd hours worth of work and all of that. I just want to know, is there a budget, if you could maybe next time show us, is there a budget line for those kinds of things? And if not, how, where does that fall in our budget as to how we pay for that? Because 200 plus hours, I think I calculated out, was like 6 weeks worth of work for someone, which is a lot of money. If you just took those hours and then gave it to one person so I didn't know whether there's a budget. I just wanted to know where in our budget does that come from? And if not, do we need to develop a budget line for something like that so we can monitor those kinds of requests? I just would like to know, so for the next one, if that would be possible. Sorry.
Well, I can just tell you that the public record requests are items that are usually confidential, somewhat confidential in nature. And so, you know, they go through usually confidential level employees' hands. And so it either takes away from their time that they're doing their job, but in my particular role, you know, it's gonna happen outside of probably the course of my day. So I think we can calculate that for you. We calculated the hours of what it's taking us to pull these together. And, but, you know, again, it's.
Well, I also understand that we had to use a law firm to
Oh, yeah.
kind of
They're still in a law
make
firm
sure
stance right
that
now.
what was redacted was legally allowed to be, or should have been redacted. I mean, all those are costs, and I'm thinking, I don't remember anywhere in our budget that we approved this year, was there a place for that cost? So if we use that money, it's got to come from somewhere else. So I just kind of am curious, how do we, you know, where do we get that money from as we balance our budget?
I can just tell you from what's happened in my hands is that I try to screen all the, you know, volumes. I kid you not, the volumes were this high. I go through those because there's a lot of repetition. And it's not a simple thing to go get a one transaction off of our bank report that looks like this, but all you wanted was this one little action here. Then you've got to redact all of this other stuff and all of these other things that have nothing to do with it.
Martina, I think we're wondering what.
Okay.
And if you want to put something like that on the agenda.
I would like to.
We should do that before we discuss it.
Yeah,
Okay.
please.
Okay. Anything else you want to add, Mr. Hoffman?
No, there's plenty.
Okay. Stand adjourned.